identifying that moment of choice is really, really what's powerful for me, because if the question comes up, that in and of itself isn't any determination of what will happen next. Welcome to Lay It On Me, a space where we come together to explore all of life's moments. I'm Claire, and I'm here to listen, share what I can, and most of all, hold space for you. This is a place where you can lay down whatever is on your heart and be met with no judgment, just honesty, love, and connection. Whether it's something big or small, light or heavy, lay it on me, and let's see where we end up together. Hello and welcome back to Lay It On Me. It is episode 4. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to dive right into our topic for today. Today's topic is imposter syndrome. This was sent in by a listener, and it's one of those things where the more I started thinking about it, the more it kept coming up and showing up in my life in different ways, in either a spooky or totally magical sense, depending on how you want to look at it. I love to look at it as a little magic synchronicities. The more you think about something, the more it shows up and presents itself to you, right? And so this topic is actually the one that I tried to start with last week when I mentioned it just wasn't clicking exactly right. And so then I dove into what I dove into last week. This is going to be a totally different tone of an episode. I know that got a bit heavy last week. Thank you so much for listening out there. If you did, that episode is still really sitting with me in a beautiful way. It was wonderful to be able to share. Again, I'm just so grateful to have this space and to have chosen to be here and share and to be able to dive into things like that, and just hope that someone out there is listening. It really, really, really means so much. So with this topic, it wasn't quite clicking last week because my heart was really calling me to talk about something else, which I did. But then that same day after I recorded that episode, I was out with some friends after a workout class, and this topic of imposter syndrome came up in conversation, and I was like, whoa, okay. There's a reason why I didn't record it that moment. And then all of these ideas and thoughts started flooding in, and I was like, okay, perfect. The timing is perfect. I knew I wanted to make sure to get this topic as the next episode, and it was just all falling into place. And as Rachel and some of our friends say, the universe is universing. It's really putting in the work to make sure that what needs to be present for me at whatever different time is. Everything is always lining up in perfect timing. I really believe that. And this was definitely an example of that. I had been trying to talk about this, deciding to go a different direction, knowing that I really wanted to continue to reflect on this topic, and then it came up that very same day. So I knew it was meant to be. And it has been coming up for me since then as well. Between then and now that I'm finally sitting down to record, it is one of those things where I was like, okay, the timing is just perfect. So anyway, this was sent in, and now it's been coming up in my life, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So let's dive into imposter syndrome. I have experienced imposter syndrome pretty much my whole life. I could tie this all back into masking, which I've touched on a lot, but I think that one of the parts of imposter syndrome is feeling like a fraud, and I felt like a fraud because I was behaving as one. That's a really watered down and oversimplified version of my experience of masking, but I was pretending. I was not being true to myself. I was acting and behaving not in line with how I felt or how I actually saw things. There was this sort of disconnect, and so I had a lot of these feelings throughout my life of feeling like a fraud. And I didn't really know why until I started looking back and noticing how much I had been masking throughout my life and being like, oh, well, okay, so that feeling was coming from a real place, right? So sometimes there might be experiences like that where you feel like a fraud and you can truly admit to yourself, like, okay, maybe I am. that is a bit different than imposter syndrome, but imposter syndrome comes up in so many different ways. And the first thing that I want to touch on is in relation to this conversation that came up that day where I wasn't feeling quite right to talk about this. And then we had this conversation. I was like, oh, that's why, because I needed to be reminded of this and reflect on it and bring it in here. So the conversation was with one of my good friends from college. I've known her since I think 2016 when she started school, a year after me. And we've gone through so many phases of our friendship, so many versions of ourselves, right? And she was recalling me talking to her at one point in college, early on in my relationship now that I have now with Ryan, that I was expressing to her these feelings of imposter syndrome for my life and literally my day-to-day existence. I was just feeling unworthy. I was feeling like it wasn't real. I was feeling like I didn't deserve any of this. And it was definitely a phase of growing into myself within this relationship that took a lot of work. And this feeling of imposter syndrome within that was really this feeling of my life is too good. I do not deserve this. And I don't want any of this to sound like braggy or whatever, but it was simple things that I just really wasn't allowing myself to enjoy the good parts of my life and really soak in the things that were working out. I was just feeling like this can't be real. I don't deserve this. Get me out of here. And I know that so much of this came up for me in therapy, in processing my own experience of things, and then now being in a type of relationship I had never been in before, with so much future potential and so much security and comfort and just some of these things that I wasn't quite ready to own. And it was scary because I didn't know what to do. And because I was feeling unworthy and not deserving of this happiness or whatever it was that I was experiencing, I really was living in a space of fear and being fearful that because I didn't deserve whatever it was I was experiencing in my life, that it all could just disappear at the drop of a hat, or one tiny mistake would prove to everyone around me that I am a fraud and I don't deserve any of this, and then everything's going to disappear and I'm going to be alone. And so many of those fears were coming up, and I was really living in that space of fear. And so I wasn't allowing myself to actually take in what was happening or actually process the feeling of safety or security or comfort or whatever it was that was triggering this part of me that was like, this isn't real. This can't be real. You're not real. You're a fraud. Everything's fake. You're an imposter in your own life. You've faked your way. Fake it till you make it. You have faked your way here. And so now that it's becoming real, it actually can't be real because you're not real. And it really was this twisted view of myself and everything. It could have been one of those things that could damage a relationship if I was gonna shut myself off from actually connecting with another person because I felt like I was a fake or that I didn't deserve whatever I was getting. I remember talking about this so much in therapy, and my therapist would always ask me, who is telling you this? Who is making you believe this? And I, at that phase in therapy, thought that I was supposed to come up with a reasoning of where this came from, why I believe this. Was it from family or school, or did I learn this? Did I pick this up somewhere? And truthfully, the answer was just me. I was the one that was making myself believe this. I was the one that was telling myself that these things were true, that I didn't deserve this, that I was a fake, that I was fill in the blank. I was the one that was fueling that narrative, and eventually being able to recognize that for what it is to just say like, oh, I'm creating this experience for myself, that I am telling myself that this is real. Is it real? Am I a fraud? Do I not deserve any of this? Actually then being able to flip it back on myself and say, oh, so I've been telling myself all of this. I've been believing all of this. I've been convincing myself that this is true. Is it true? And thankfully, through many different support systems, I was able to tackle some of that and look at my life and say, okay, I deserve this. I deserve this. I deserve to be myself. I deserve to have this experience. I deserve to feel this way. I deserve to fill in the blank. Now, imposter syndrome has definitely been one of those things that has come up in many different contexts in my life. So that was one. Personal relationships, being like, whoa, I do not deserve this. I have faked my way through life and somehow it got me here, which means that I faked my way here, which means that I don't really deserve this. And that is just so damaging to myself and the people around me, because especially in a personal relationship, if I'm operating with the belief that I faked my way here and I don't deserve this, that actually discredits so much of the love and happiness that I am getting from this other person, that I'm receiving from this relationship, and that is actually real within our relationship. And it always has been, but I was living with this worldview that there's no way that I could have ever deserved any of this. So thankfully, being able to tackle some of that definitely led to a better connection between Ryan and I, and then other people in my life too. I was able to really get in touch with myself, what I was believing before I even really knew that that's what I was doing. I was getting in touch with what I was believing and how I was viewing these things in my life. And I was viewing so much of my life as like not real. I was like, there's no way this could be real, when in fact it was right in front of me and it was very, very real. So it twisted my view, this feeling of imposter syndrome. It really twisted my view of what is real, what is not. It's very like Truman Show-ish for me. I was so convinced that at any moment that I would learn that this was all made up and that none of it was real for me. I really, really was believing that. And it was not a great place to be in. And so that was a long process of really just identifying where those thoughts were coming from and deciding what to do with them. Especially when I was able to acknowledge that they were just coming from me. It was just me. I was just creating this awful experience for myself. Now, imposter syndrome definitely still comes up for me, but I have been able to work through it in new ways with different tools that I've developed, different ways that I just feel more confident in myself and assured in what I experience and whether or not it's real. Doing this podcast is actually a great experience in working through some of these feelings of imposter syndrome, because at least for me, having worked through it and continuing to work through it doesn't necessarily dampen the amount of anxious questions that go through my head, but I respond to them so differently. So, questions that come up doing something like this is like, who am I to sit here and talk and share my perspective? Like, wow, who could ever want to listen to this random girl, blah, 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 blah. All of these stories that I could write, and I could go down all of these paths so far and just create this entire narrative that I shouldn't be here. I really could. I have so much experience doing that for myself. But now, when those questions come up of who am I to be doing this? Who am I to be sitting here and sharing my opinions and my perspectives? Who wants to hear this? Why does it matter? I don't deserve to be here. If those thoughts and questions and that type of narrative starts to come up for me, now, because of so much work that I've done to just halt it there, stop it there, at that questioning, at the beginning of that narrative, I get to now see that right there and choose which direction to go. And identifying the moment where I get to choose which direction to go is so powerful for me, because at least as far as I have experienced, I can't stop those questions and those self-doubt thoughts from coming up necessarily. They definitely come up less and less the more that I grow and tackle them and continue to put myself in positions like this where they might come up and I get to rewrite the story, But identifying that moment of choice is really, really what's powerful for me, because if the question comes up, that in and of itself isn't any determination of what will happen next. Me questioning, who am I to do this? That alone used to mean, well, if I'm asking myself, who am I to do this? The answer is obviously nobody, and I shouldn't be doing this. That really used to be the default, and that question would just automatically write the entire story. But now that question doesn't write the entire story. That question comes up for me time and time again doing something like this. Who am I to do this? And so instead of just going down this path that I used to go down to convince myself I shouldn't be doing this, I look for whatever reason I can to answer that question honestly and authentically. That is what gives me more power for myself to move forward with confidence and not feel like a fraud and not doubt myself. And it's been really powerful for me also to not dismiss the question and not to just say, oh, that's just my anxious brain asking that question. I don't even need to entertain that. In certain situations, that could be the solution. But for something like this and something that can be a little bit persistent and come up for me in so many different ways because of my history and how I used to lead my life, I used to really not have any of these answers about myself, and I wouldn't really feel solid in what I was doing or that it was real or that I was worthy or whatever. I would just always doubt myself. And so to not dismiss the question and to not allow myself to go down that default road of writing this story about how I don't matter, I take that question as it comes up, whatever voice inside my head is speaking, whether it's anxiety or self-doubt or any of these things. Who am I to do something like this? That might be undercut with the feeling of, wow, maybe I'm really not supposed to do this. Maybe I'm not really cut out for this. Maybe, let's entertain the question. Maybe that's true, but maybe it's not. Who am I to do this? Maybe I'm someone that feels really excited to share their perspective because she's learned firsthand that sharing her perspective has helped her friends, and them sharing their perspective has helped her. So maybe this whole idea of just sharing is really powerful. So there's a whole story we can write to combat this imposter syndrome of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm a fake, none of this is real. Well, maybe it is. Let's maybe find some evidence of this being real and being able to answer this question, who am I to do this, with a version of you are exactly the right person to do this. What if that's true? And being able to incorporate that potentially anxious questioning, that really helps me find so much power and so much confidence in myself, because I don't have to feel like I have to cut off that part of myself. That part of myself is slowly getting quieter and slowly having less control over my behavior because of all of this work that I'm doing. But I don't need to ask it to leave completely. I can't really at this point, it comes up when it comes up. And so I just have to practice noticing it and choosing to go a different direction. And so with something like this, that's how I've really been able to combat that voice in my head. Why are we doing this? Why are we here? Why does this matter? Those answers used to be so definitely negative. And now it's okay if I ask myself those questions, and it's okay if those questions are coming from a place of fear, because then I get to notice them, I get to see them, and I get to give myself a different answer. If I'm asking myself, well, why does this even matter? Then I get to actually get curious and discover for myself, why does this even matter? And then I get to choose what that looks like. And I get to choose to show up to prove to myself maybe that this does matter and I do matter. And talking about stuff like this can really make a difference. And I really do believe that. And I really do look for evidence of that belief being true. So when these questions come up, they don't automatically negate that. They just give me an opportunity to find a new answer and to redirect that questioning towards discovering something new instead of just falling into an old habit or a negative thought pattern or whatever it might be. So it's been really interesting to reflect on this experience of imposter syndrome at this point where I am very much in a phase of just going for it. Regardless of if I'm able to fully rewrite the story of all this anxious questioning, at a certain point, I'm just going for it and just seeing what happens. And it's been definitely a different way of operating than I'm used to. I am very much used to being really in my head for a while, having all of these anxious questions come up, going down whatever path I end up going down, eventually coming back around and maybe never even getting anything done. But lately, I've just been diving headfirst into so many projects that I don't have enough time to get stuck in this feeling of being an imposter or being a fraud. I have just decided that I am just gonna go for it and I am just gonna figure it out. So this podcast is a huge version of that. And then I'm writing a book. If you follow me on Instagram, maybe you've seen I did announce that I'm writing a book, and I'm deep in that process, but I totally feel like a fraud. I barely even read books, okay? I'm putting it out there. I have decided to write a book, and I have read maybe less than 30 books in the last 10 years. Okay, like I'm being completely honest here. I'm not a good reader. I can't sit down and read a book very easily. It's so difficult for me, and it comes from so many different places, that sort of struggle that I have with reading, whether it's the material or sitting down and reading because I have ADHD, it can be difficult, or there's so many things that can go into that. But I got to this place last year where I really, really felt so confident and so sure that the exact right decision that I was going to make is that I am going to write a book. And I am. And that was about 6 months ago. I honestly don't know. Chronology, I'm so bad at it. Okay, let me see. It was maybe October, November, December, January, February, March. It's April. About 6 months ago. Great. Wow, we did it. About 6 months ago is when I really decided to just go all in and fully embrace the decision to write a book. And this is a huge project, bigger than anything I have ever done, bigger than pursuing an acting career, bigger than it is huge, and it's so new and it's such unknown territory for me that these feelings of imposter syndrome and everything that comes with it have been very strong. And so, one very clear thing that comes up for me in feeling like a fraud writing a book is that I don't read a ton. I'm not a big reader. And I have read a lot of books in the last few years. Honestly, about 25 of the 30 I've read in the past 10 years have been in the last 3 years. So there's something there. I'm finding ways that work for me. Audiobooks have been very, very helpful. I'm very much like an audio person. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to start a podcast, is because I really, really love podcasts. And I realized, I'm listening to different podcasts for hours and hours a day. Maybe I could try an audiobook. And that was really helpful. So I got through a lot of books that way. But anyway, this thing, I'm feeling like I'm distracting myself from getting to the point because it's feeling very raw. But I really, I've been tackling these feelings of feeling like a fraud writing a book because what am I doing there? who in their right mind, in my position, could make this decision? These are the real thoughts and the real questions that come up for me. And so I've been doing the work to notice that and to combat them with all the tools that I have been gathering over the years and therapy and coaching and all the different things. And to just say, okay, I hear you. I hear that part of my voice. And still, I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And still, I know this is what I want to be doing. And still, I know that I am capable of doing this. And still, I know that I will figure it out. And that is a big one that I hang on to all the time, especially when these self-doubt questions really come up, is I will figure it out. Some of these anxious questions really just want a definitive answer. Well, you don't know X, Y, and Z, therefore you can't do X, Y, and Z. And I just say to that voice in my head, I say, you're right, I don't know that, but I'm gonna learn and I'm gonna figure it out because I'm gonna do this. I'm just going to do it and I'm just gonna learn how. And being in a place to make this big decision without really knowing a lot about what the process is going to look like, I have never approached something the way that I am approaching writing this book. And I think that that is going to be part of the magic of it and the way that it's already been unfolding for me has certainly come from this willingness to just figure it out as I go and not feel the need to have all the answers and have it all figured out before I make the decision so that then I don't feel like a fraud. I've decided to embrace this decision. I have decided to commit to going down this path and to learn what it takes as I go and to continue to show up and adjust the process as I go. And as I collect new information, as I learn more about what this looks like for me, as I learn more about what I want from it, and as I learn more about what it might mean for me and anyone else, there's so much that I never could have discovered had I not just made this decision first. And diving into this totally open, unknown territory of writing a book, it's super scary. And I have never felt more confident in a decision, regardless of all of these questions coming up. And I truly believe that I got to a place where I was able to make this decision knowing how little I knew about the process, because I knew that I was in a place where I could combat these parts of myself that might come up, that might doubt myself, that might convince me I'm a fraud, that might convince me I don't deserve any of this. I had gotten to a place just in so many different areas of my life where I could hear those voices, I could listen to them, and I could respond in a new way, and they were no longer in charge. And that has been really true. And as I continue to discover this process of both this podcast and writing my book, it's been a real discovery of how much I have really grown and how much I have been able to quiet those voices and also just acknowledge them when they're there, but not give them the control over myself that they used to have. And being able to identify the thoughts and the ideas and the questions that aren't necessarily in my best interest, but are still a part of me somewhere. It's been helpful to just embrace them for what they are and be able to respond to them in a new way instead of just trying to get rid of them. I feel like I was trying to get rid of those voices, get rid of the doubt forever, and it just wasn't working because I don't know that it was supposed to, at least not for me, because when I started to embrace them is actually when I started to make more progress on my own growth. And in anything that I decided to do or process I decided to start, I was able to just embrace those as a part of it and move with them. And without that resistance against that part of myself just being there, it actually just automatically wasn't so strong and it wasn't so in charge. And now there is one thing that I experienced in coaching that I didn't necessarily connect to, this experience of imposter syndrome or self-doubt. I didn't connect it in the moment to helping alleviate some of these feelings of self-doubt, inadequacy, insecurity, fraudulence, whatever it comes up for you in imposter syndrome. Those are just a few of what I feel like is under the umbrella experience for me of imposter syndrome. This moment in coaching, this experience I had, it was when my coach asked me, we're doing belief work, at this point in our sessions, which I spoke a lot about in episode 1, as I'm sure you'll remember if you listened, diving into beliefs. And my coach asked me, what does it mean to believe in yourself? And I was so taken aback by that question in our session because I was like, I don't know. But I don't know. I do not know what it means. Really, in the moment, that's how I felt. And we had also gotten to a point where she wasn't letting me skate by with the I don't know answer that easily anymore. And she was like, okay, we're going to sit with this. What does it mean to believe in yourself? And she was really just gently nudging me to really actually think about it and feel what it could mean. What does it mean to believe in yourself? And this question transformed my life completely. And so, anyone out there who's listening, what does it mean to believe in yourself? Really get curious, really allow yourself to discover what that means. I, for one, would love to believe in myself. I would love for that to be a belief that I hold. And I want to say now I do believe in myself. And that's what's been able to lead me to make big decisions and start new projects and feel confident in hearing these anxious voices, knowing that they're not the truth, And I really had to discover what that meant for me. What did it mean to believe in myself? And some of the things that came up for me were these feelings of believing in myself would mean believing that I am capable of figuring out what I need to do, figuring out what I need to know. So that sort of that open space of if I believe in myself and I don't exactly know the answer to whatever question's coming up for me about my life, if I believe in myself, then I believe that I can figure that out. I can know that, and maybe I just need more time, or maybe I just need more information. And maybe not immediately having an answer wasn't necessarily an indication that I was unworthy or undeserving or all of these things, but maybe I just needed more time, needed more information, needed to just sit with myself a little bit more. And so if I were to live with this belief of believing in myself, one of the things that would mean is that I would believe in my own ability to learn whatever anything means. I would believe in myself and my own ability to continue to move through my own experience even when I didn't have all the answers. Even when I didn't exactly know what I thought I was supposed to know, or whatever it might have been, to believe in myself. For me, one of the things that means is that I believe I can always keep learning. I can always keep growing. I can and I will, and I believe in myself to continue to do that. And the more that I believe that I'm able to do that I can keep learning and I can keep growing, I do. It all starts with the belief. If you don't believe in your own ability to learn and grow, you probably won't, or at least you won't very easily. Believing in myself means that my experiences are real and what I know to be true is true for me. And this is why I'm connecting this belief to this topic of imposter syndrome, because I was not believing in myself when I was feeling like a fraud. And when I was feeling like I had to pretend or fake my way through things or whatever it might have been, I was not believing in myself. And I was not believing that I could learn and grow from my own experience, because I wasn't even believing my experience was real or that it was for me or anything. I was so just not believing in myself and not believing in my own ability to determine what is real or not, or what is true for me, or what I want, or what I deserve, or what I need. I was not believing in any of that. And so confronting this idea, what does it mean to believe in yourself? I decided I am going to believe in myself. So then I had to discover what that means. And so a big thing about what that means for me is that my experiences are real. My life is real. I didn't stumble here on accident. It's not a fluke. It's not the Truman Show. It's not all going to disappear at the drop of a hat. It is real. It is my experience. I can learn from it. I can grow from it. And I am a big part of my own experience. And the way that I view my own experience as real or not, or whether I believe I deserve it or not, the way that I am viewing that really affects the way that I experience it. And so I'm choosing to believe in myself, and I'm choosing to believe in my ability to keep learning and to keep growing, and I'm choosing to believe that what I know is real, and what I know is true. I'm choosing to believe that. There is so much of my life where I was actively choosing to believe that what I thought was true was not true. And I was actively choosing to believe what I saw was not real. And so this is a big shift for me. This was a big shift in my life to really decide that what I see as real and true is real and true for me. And that's what I know. That's all that any of us can do at the end of the day. And if we're convincing ourselves that our own experiences aren't even real, then what are we even doing? And how do you move forward with that? I surely don't know. I was stuck for a long time trying to operate with the belief that parts of my life were not real and that I didn't deserve what I had, or who I was, or who was with me, or whatever it was. I got really stuck. And when I was able to shift that belief to believe in myself and my own experience, everything becomes so much lighter. Everything makes a lot more sense, I must say. Because the things that are real are real. And if I'm operating under the belief that they're not, or they're fake, or I'm fake, or this or that, everything is going to get really confusing and really muddy, because that's not really what is real. And for me, I know that that's true, because when I made that shift, things made more sense. Things fell into place. Imposter syndrome can really get us stuck because we're convincing ourselves that where we are and what we have isn't enough. But where we are and what we have is all we have and all we know, and it has to be enough. And it is always enough. And if you can believe in yourself and believe in your ability to keep learning and growing, that's enough too. And that will get you to the next step. That will get you towards where you want to go if you don't want to be where you are, if you don't want to have what you have. Allow yourself to believe that you can grow and you can change and you can evolve and you can see things differently. There is a layer of imposter syndrome that, at least to me, my experience was feeling like I was doing certain things and I was capable of certain things, but at some point, someone was gonna just realize that I actually wasn't doing those things and I actually wasn't capable of them. It was this weird, blurry view of reality where what I was doing, what I actually was doing and capable of wasn't real, and that somehow that was going to fall on top of me, or somehow that was going to crumble out from under me. And let's use an example of being in a certain type of job, doing the job, and then all of a sudden learning that you've been doing everything wrong, that even though you've been at this job for 6 months doing things the way they were taught to you, the way they're supposed to be done, like all of a sudden it's just like, no, I actually don't know how to do any of this because there's no way that I can. I totally don't deserve this. I don't believe in myself. I'm totally doubting everything. And all of a sudden, someone's going to know. I'm going to be found out as the fraud that I am. That is part of the experience. And so that is also why, for me, this building this internal belief and really attacking these things in my own head has been my way through these types of experiences, because the fear is that someone is gonna figure it out. Someone is gonna know that I'm doing things wrong, And so if I can work from the internal place of I believe in myself, I believe in my capability, I'm doing these things, I'm learning, then it doesn't matter, right? If someone says like, oh, you're doing something wrong. Well, if I'm actually doing something wrong and I can just see that for what it is, then I can adjust and change and learn and grow and all the things that come from believing in myself first. But if I'm in this position where I'm just scared that someone's going to realize that I'm doing everything wrong, and then God forbid, if it's a work situation, God forbid a boss says like, hey, you did something wrong, then that's confirming my fear that I'm a fraud and that everything is just going to disappear. And so knowing that this experience actually does just come from ourselves, it does just come from the voices in our heads convincing ourselves that what is true is not true and what is real is not real, or whatever your experience of it might be, we have to start inside. And honestly, that can be said about pretty much everything, but we have to start inside. So if you're struggling with experiences of imposter syndrome or feeling like the outside world is never going to believe that you're worthy, do you believe that you're worthy? Do you believe in yourself? And if you do, or you want to, what does it mean to believe in yourself? And how does that look to you? How does that feel to you? And what does that lead you towards? And what does that drive you to do? And how does that allow you to show up in your life? That's what you have to ask yourself, and that's what you have to get curious about. And just be willing to discover it. And you will, I promise. I believe that we're meant to believe in ourselves. That is really how big things can happen. Big moves can be made. Big feelings can be felt. Connections and whatever it might be. If we are believing in ourselves, it's actually so easy to believe in everyone else. And it's so easy to believe that there is this limitless potential and there is this joyous connection to be found. Living from this place of really believing in myself has truly opened me up to believing in so much more, because I'm not now bogged down by, oh, everything's fake, I'm fake, everything's gonna be, all of that. That's not what's in control anymore, because I have committed to discovering what it means to believe in myself. I'm committed to discovering what that means every single day, because I do believe in myself. And so I'm seeking out evidence to confirm that. That's what we do too. That's what these beliefs drive us to do. If you are living with a belief, your brain, your mind, your body is going to look for confirmation of that belief. And so in this type of situation, it can be one or the other. If you are living with this belief that you're not worthy, you're undeserving, you're a fraud, your brain is going to look for confirmation of that. If you choose to believe in yourself, believe that you are worthy, believe that you are capable, believe that you deserve this, believe that you are here, that you matter, that it's real, that what you know to be true is true, then you will find confirmation of that. It's a similar experience of what I was talking about at the very beginning of thinking about this topic, wanting to speak on this topic, wasn't feeling right. I kept thinking about it, and that very same day it came up. That very same day, I was able to get back in touch with my own experience of this subject and topic, my own experience, my own feelings, my own perspective, what I want to show up with to this podcast, whatever it was that wasn't clicking for me, whatever, if I was reaching for these thoughts, these ideas, whatever it was, just wasn't feeling completely connected. And then that very same day, I was reminded of my own experience with imposter syndrome. And that sparked so many memories and so many realizations of, wow, I remember feeling that way. And wow, I remember some of the conversations I had in therapy about that. And wow, now I am maybe experiencing similar thoughts, but I'm approaching them so differently now. And it just fell into place in a way that I really believe is meant to happen for us when we believe in ourselves. If you choose to believe in yourself and look for what that means, discover what that means for you. Oh my gosh, the world's not ready for all of us to just fully believe in ourselves. And by the world's not ready, I mean, let's start a revolution. No more imposter syndrome. We don't need it. And it's only in our head. It really is. It's only in our head. So we just get to acknowledge where it's coming from, how it shows up for us, what our default operating mode has been when that happens or where this comes up. Find that moment to choose to go a different way. Maybe people can be successful in nipping in the bud this sort of anxious questioning. I, for one, haven't gotten there yet, and I'm totally fine if I never do, because that choice gets easier, and that moment of choice becomes way bigger and way clearer, and I have so much more room to move within that. Because I've just expanded it to give myself the space to discover what I want and to get curious about these feelings that I have instead of just allowing it to determine the rest of my experience. And so there you go. The formula to beat imposter syndrome. If only, right? But I really do think this is a very relatable topic. I know I've had so many conversations with people about this, especially being an artist myself and being in circles with different artists and performers and creatives of different types. I think we specifically may be very prone to these feelings because art and creativity is so subjective, and it's really hard to build that internal belief in yourself if you're also trying to show or express or gain recognition from others or the outside or whatever it might be. It definitely can come a lot for people like us. So I do believe that there's going to be people out there that relate to this, and I hope that that's true, and let me know if it is. And as always, please send in your thoughts on this and any other topics I have talked about, and please send me topics that you want to be talked about. This one has been really interesting because it's been on my list since the very beginning of this show, and it was just one of those things where the timing had to be right for me to tap in and really talk about this. And that's one of the really amazing things about this podcast so far, is that the topics that have been sent in are just so rich and so juicy, and I love to dive into them. And it's been so amazing to see how they continue to show up for me, or how they show up before I record and give me new ideas in the moment. It's been really amazing to explore things like this. And again, I really hope it's giving you out there some sort of value, some sort of comfort and recognition to what you might be experiencing. And my biggest goal is, just by voicing my experience and the way I've learned and grown through experiences like this, the tools I've picked up along the way, the ideas that have helped helped me, if even one tiny nugget can help someone out there, then I really could not be more happy, more proud, and more grateful to just be here. And so thank you. I'm going to end this one here. And as always, you are not alone. You matter. I love you. Take care of yourself. And remember, whatever you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone. Lay it on me. I love you. Bye.